What is going on, everyone? Good to see you again. I appreciate y'all being here. Unfortunately, not a victory Tuesday here, but that's all right. That's gonna happen. Um, not gonna win every single week, and obviously we're gonna be talking about it. I am gonna put in the giveaway here. Let me just make sure I got the right link. Okay, perfect. Want to make sure I'm not linking to a previous giveaway or something along those lines. All right, so there is the giveaway. If you are new here, enter that form. Please only one entry per individual watching. I need to be able to make sure that if you do win, you can claim the prize. I know I know last week we had Logan watching with Corey. So in that situation or in that case, obviously we make an exception. We talked about that, but I do want to say before we get started, absolutely no political talk here. If I see politic talk, I am blocking you. I don't care who it is. If it's my own family watching, I do not allow politics on my page. I respect everyone. Everyone has their own opinion on stuff. There's plenty of places to talk about it if you want to talk about it, but my page is not it. So that's kind of the only warning I'm going to give. Obviously, I don't want to have to ban anyone or block anyone, but I'm not going to allow politics to take over my page. It's kind of been my blanket policy since I started this. So let's check in. Let's see where we're at. I see Ron's here in Appleton. Ron, I hope you thawed out from the game. I know I had the pleasure of running into Ron on Saturday. He was at the alumni signing, and I was walking around with my son, and he went to the game. We talked about hopefully the weather broke. The weather did not break. Speaking of, I see my guy Chad here. Let me get that banner going of my streaks here. Chad also went to the game with his wife and two younger children. I know they had a great time at their first game. I'm sure it was very cold for them. Corey in New Ulm with Logan again. Good to see you guys. Logan, appreciate you swinging again, watching with Corey. That's great. Thomas, I don't know. Thomas, I've seen you around my page a lot. Obviously, I'm very familiar. If you ever change your profile picture, I might not recognize you right away. I don't know if you've stopped in on the show before or not, but appreciate you having. I appreciate you swinging in and happy to have you. Ben's checking in from somewhere else tonight, normally Bakersfield, but he is in Rohnert Park, California. We got, is it Chaz in Fort Worth, Texas. Frankie's up in the UP, which is practically Canada. Frankie's dead to me. Sway Coda, good to see you in Minneapolis. Yeah, I see Heather's in from Knoxville. I know that. Derek in South Dakota, good to see you again, man. Kirby, checking in again. I got you on the old ticker on the bottom, so good to see you again, man. Appreciate you being here. Oh, Raimundo in Tulare, California. Ooh, not sure. I probably almost butchered that. And then we got Katie in Iowa. My boy Casey. Nice Legendaries banner. Thank you. Yeah, they hooked me up with a sign. Now I'm official. And then Jenny in Germantown. Good to see you, Jenny. Appreciate you always being in here and swinging in. Michael, good to see you back from Oklahoma. All right, let's get into it. First, let's talk about the breaking news today. The Packers, once again at the trade deadline, traded one of their top cornerbacks in Preston Smith. No, in all seriousness, traded Preston Smith, who is a linebacker, pass rusher. It seemed like the scheme that we are running now doesn't necessarily fit with his strengths. In the past, he's obviously been an excellent playmaker for us. He's a very reliable individual. I think he's only missed one game his whole career, if I'm not mistaken. And the Packers traded him to Pittsburgh in exchange for a 7th round pick. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, only a 7th round pick? That is terrible. We didn't get anything for him. And what are we going to do? The biggest part of that trade is the fact that the Steelers are taking on his contract. I think he was set to make $13.5 million next year, if not maybe a little bit more. I think that was the cap hit for the Packers, was right around $13.5 million. The fact that the Packers could get that off their books is huge. That's going to be a big cap savings. We have a lot of guys coming up that are going to need to be re-signed, and that money is going to be well used. Goot talked about potentially trying to make another move before the trade deadline. Unfortunately, he said it's not like a grocery store where you can kind of go in and pick these good value things. A lot of times trade deadline's tough because the people who are selling often want more than what the value is. And if you do see players moving for cheap because they have big contract hits that go with it. I know we saw Marshawn Lattimore go from the Saints to Washington. I think his contract hits for the next couple of years are like 30 plus million, which is really tough. So trade deadline is one of those things that it seems like Packer fans always get like super anxious about every single year, like something's going to happen, and it generally doesn't at the trade deadline, or if it does, it's very minor moves. The Packers are not going to ever like sell out and trade all of their capital to get a player at the trade deadline. The Packers are, in the current structure, are a draft and develop team. So, yes, it'd be fun, exciting to see the Packers pick up someone, but you never want to expect it. The bigger news about Preston is he is undefeated against the Bears. He's 12-0 against the Bears, and we play the Bears next. So, maybe that's a bad omen. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not superstitious like that, but it is 12-0 against the Bears, which is pretty remarkable, or pretty unremarkable. And then the other trade news that we saw is we saw some other moves across the NFL, but Zadarius Smith got moved into the division. He got traded from Cleveland to Detroit. I hope they make him a captain. Otherwise, it's gonna go south. Maybe he'll wear his captain chain and he'll be okay. For those of you that don't know, when Zadarius was here, he was very upset that the Packers did not name him a captain, and he went out and got a captain chain made, which I thought was pretty interesting. Really yells for leadership there. If you need to go get a chain made to say that you're a leader. But he is now in the division. The Packers will play him when they go into Detroit. Obviously, they had Aiden Hutchinson go down, which they are in need of a pass rush. I don't know. I haven't followed Zadarius. He's bounced around to a couple teams now. He was in Minnesota, then he was in Cleveland. Now he's in Detroit. I don't know how his numbers have looked. I haven't really paid attention to him at all, if we're being honest. So maybe it's a good grab for them. I know they didn't give up a ton for him, but once again, contracts happen. You need the take on the money, which is always a big thing. But let's talk about this game. It was an interesting game. Let's see here. The Packers fell to the Lions 24-14. Yeah, it's the Packers move on to 6-3, and the Lions go to 7-2 atop the NFC North. But boy, oh boy, I posted during the game that I wasn't sure what was more sloppy, the weather we had during the game or the football team. I'm still not too sure, but I think it was the football team, even though that weather was sloppy, as Ron and the Tullys can attest to. And I feel like a broken record here. I feel like every single time we're talking, whenever the Packers lose or whenever there's like that rough performance, it's always the same kind of things. I know Tony and I were joking around during the game that we could just basically like record a segment of my show just to replay, so I don't have to sit here and say the same thing over and over again. But it was a sloppy one, man. We had penalties. It seems to be, when we're looking at these games that are either super tightly contested or barely won by the Packers this season. The Eagles game was one. Minnesota was another really sloppy one. Against Detroit was a really sloppy one. Penalties. I mean, we had 10 penalties for 67 yards. That doesn't sound like a ton, but the situations on where we had them made them really horrific. You saw them in prime opportunities of like red zone, and then it would stall out the drive because we get a penalty that now makes it from a second and manageable to, first and 20. A lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of jumps on the offensive line. Super frustrating. And I was looking back over last year's, some of my posts last year and some of my kind of remarks last year. And it was the same thing last year. Every game, it was extremely, I felt like undisciplined. I think that's a fair word to say. I think at one point I said that I felt like I was in Groundhog's Day because every game was just sloppy and we expected it to get better and it just wasn't, and it just wasn't, and it just wasn't. And then it did. So I hope the Packers can do it again this year. I don't understand why it seems like every single year we have to start out this year so sloppy, so unprepared, so like out of sync. I don't know if it goes back to the preseason. I don't think that should be the case. I don't know if it's all of the movement that LaFleur does prior to a snap or prior to the offense going. I don't know. But man, if it's not frustrating. Along with that, we had another handful of costly drops. We saw Chris Brooks drop that one on the opening drive that would have converted the third down, potentially even made it a touchdown. Wasn't the greatest throw. It was a little bit behind him. However, he had both of his hands on it. Does the rain play a part in that? I'm not sure. Tucker Kraft dropped the third down conversion as well. And then you saw Dontavian Wicks drop the touchdown that ended up resulting in a turnover on downs because that was a fourth down play. Along with that, we also had another handful of missed opportunities, missed field goal, which I'm not blaming McManus by any means for missing a field goal in the downpour, especially a longer field goal. I actually said in real time, I said, hey, we probably shouldn't be going for this here, or we probably shouldn't be kicking this field goal. We should probably be going for it. But, it is what it is. The pick six, obviously you can't overlook the pick six. And then finally the handful of bad snaps that we saw, 3 of which I think were fumbled. A lot of them were low, just making it really difficult. Obviously you're without Josh Myers, which that's your main center, which thrusts Elton Jenkins into the center role. Not his primary spot to play. He can definitely play there. He's a weapon across the line, but when the ball's slick and things are a little bit different, it makes it more difficult. So, just kind of checking the comments here. The Kirby bringing up a good point, and I'm going to be talking about this a little bit later, but you hold the number one offense to 17 points, which is huge. You lost 10 or lost by 10. You have a missed field goal. You have the pick six. You have other missed opportunities. There's a lot here, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more down the way. Kind of, I see like Steve talking about Love needs to throw it away. Yeah, I mean that screen, he should have just threw it into the ground. I definitely agree with that. I will say, obviously not the best showing for Love, right? You had 23 of 39, 273 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, which was that pick six. His passes weren't perfect by any means, but there is a lot of drops. We talked about that. And I think, if your receiver can get their hands on the ball, most of the time that should be a catch. Even if it's a little bit behind them, that should still be a catch. Weather conditions might change that a little bit, but I saw Jacob Morley on Twitter was talking about Love's completion percentage this year. Right now he's at 61.5%, but if it's adjusted, if the completion percentage is adjusted based off his drops, he would be at 74.4% completion. He has like the third highest drop percent in the NFL at 9.8. I know Dontavian Wicks is having a lot of drops this year. I've seen a lot of people talking about, should we bench him? I've talked about it before. I don't think they should bench Dontavian Wicks. If he's consistently getting open, I'm going to want him on the field. Even if he drops some, he's still going to be a weapon on the offense. And I think in time things will click. I personally wouldn't bench him, but I do think that fans are being quite hard on Love. We've seen him play one game without a lower body injury, and that was his game against the Eagles. Since then, that final drive, he hurt his MCL, he sprained his groin. Both of those things, really, they take time to heal. We've seen him linger throughout the season, and they affect his game in a very big way. His game right now is based on being able to move, whether it's getting outside the pocket, extending time, maybe taking off with his legs, and obviously you want to be able to throw while you're on the move or out of awkward positions, and that makes it really difficult with those injuries. And I saw a lot of people that were like, oh, he needs to take into consideration that he's injured and he needs to be smarter with the football. And I agree, with the being smarter with the football. We talked about that with, you need to learn to throw it into the ground on certain things. But also at the same time, like as far as like taking your injury into consideration, I don't think it's as easy as just like being constantly cognizant of it. So I've never played professional sports, which I know you guys are shocked about. You look at me and you think this is a guy who's probably still in peak physical shape that could play today. But I have never played sports professionally. However, I did skateboard for like 20 years. I still cruise around a little bit. And even though they're completely different things, they both very much have overlaps. In skateboarding, oftentimes you skateboard while you're injured. Injury is just kind of part of it. A lot of leg injuries, whether it's ankles, just knee injuries, just shins, everything, right? I had a lot of rolled ankles, bruised heels, all of those things you just learn to skateboard with. But similar to football, right? Injuries can drastically alter how you do things. But your muscle memory doesn't remember that. So there might be a trick that I have done thousands of times and I would have an ankle injury. I'm very well aware that my ankle hurts. I'm very well aware that my ankle is not where it should be. However, when I go to do this trick, let's say I'm kick flipping a gap and I've done a kickflip 50,000 times in my life. Because I'm injured, now maybe my pop isn't where it needs to be. Maybe my flick isn't where it needs to be. The board doesn't rotate as fast as I want it to or as slow as I want it to. The board doesn't pop up to where I want it to. Maybe the board angles more than I want it to. And there's a lot of factors that play into that. And my muscle memory immediately wants to do the same thing it's done over and over and over again. But my body, because it's injured, doesn't do it the same way. And I think we're seeing that with Jordan, right? You have leg injuries. You are used to doing things a certain way with strength in your legs at a certain way. And now when you have an MCL or a groin injury, maybe you're not able to put the oomph on the ball that you're used to. And maybe you're not able to put the ball where you want it to. I don't know for sure, but that as I was watching him and he still looks kind of hobbled around, that was my first thought is like, this is exactly how it was for skateboarding. And I do think it blows my mind how quickly some fans just want to throw Jordan Love under the bus. I think part of it is some fans want to feel like they were right about the Packers drafting him in 2020 being a wrong decision. And I also think that some fans are just so used to having a Hall of Fame quarterback and they're spoiled by this Hall of Fame quarterback that they think that if this quarterback's not a Hall of Famer, that he's not the guy. And I think that's a very tough mindset to have, especially in the NFL where it's not, you don't just stumble on Hall of Fame quarterback after Hall of Fame quarterback after Hall of Fame quarterback. It doesn't work like that. Looking over the Packers 100-year history, 100 plus years history, they've had 4 quarterbacks who are Hall of Famers. They've had Arnie Herber, they've had Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and now Aaron Rodgers. When he retires, he'll be a Hall of Famer. Over 100 years, that's what they've had. And I'm really convinced that had it been Aaron Rodgers and then Brett Favre, I think fans would have tried running Favre out of town before he even had a chance to get to be a Hall of Famer. Because I'm not saying Love's going to be a Hall of Famer by any means. I'm not by any means am I saying that. But we still don't really know what we have in Jordan Love. We saw one full season. He looked a little shaky at first, looked great the second half of the season, like phenomenal. He's come in this season, got an injury in his leg early on. He's been battling this injury. He's been battling now a groin injury. He's looked great in a lot of ways. He's also looked shaky in a lot of ways. But the fact that so many fans are like, Malik's the better quarterback. Malik's the better quarterback. We need to get rid of Jordan. I saw someone's like, we need to find someone stupid enough to trade for Jordan Love. And it's like, let's pump the brakes here. Let's pump the brakes. Let's let this play out. Jordan got paid a lot of money. He's got a lot of years left on this contract. The Packers are a business. There's no chance that they're going to just be like, okay, nope, you're going to the bench, Jordan. Malik's the starter now because you've been underperforming. Now, if the Packers were to say, hey, we're going to bench him against Detroit because we want him to heal up, that's a different story. That's one we talked about last week that I was like, you know, maybe you should. You have a bye week coming up. Maybe you should let him get healthy. But to say that Malik's the better quarterback because we've seen him throw 35 passes is absolutely blows my mind. Kirby nails it. Kirby, I'm glad Swag Coda told you to come here. You're bringing in some good comments here. But yeah, Entitled Town full in fact after the Detroit game. Packer fans, and not all. I mean, I think a lot of fans are really rational. And I obviously see the worst of it because I'll make a post and it'll get like hundreds of comments, and it's all like, you're in the game and you're like, the emotions are going, right? And you're in this roller coaster ride and oh my God, it's the sky is falling and oh my God. But Packer fans can just be so dramatic. So yeah, when they lose, everyone's like, oh my God, everyone needs to be fired. I saw someone say Matt LaFleur needs to be fired. We have 2 weeks to find a new coach. And it's like, let's pump the brakes. Let's breathe, guys. Let's breathe. Ben nailed it. Drives me crazy as well. Honestly, I love the people I get to interact with through my social media page, but there are a lot of days where I'm like, why did I decide to start this? Why couldn't I have just like stuck to just enjoying being a fan by myself? Because there's some stuff, I blatantly honest, I blocked some people this week that just annoyed the hell out of me. But that is what it is. And Derek, you bring up a great point. Absolutely. I don't think that there's an excuse for it, right? Players need to be held accountable. Penalties should not happen. You saw Nixon get a penalty right away on a punt return because he stuck his hand in a guy's face. We just can't do that. Like I know a lot of people say that's on the floor. You can coach people till you're blue in the face, but you can't make people do stuff. Yep, Thomas, fans wanted Favre replaced in his second year too. I was a little young for that. I'm a late 80s baby, so I didn't follow football that closely. I got my first jersey, my Favre jersey when I was like 4 years old, but I didn't watch the news or hear anything like that. I would just watch games, see the outcomes. But talking about Malik, and I love Malik. Malik's such a great asset, and I've talked about that all season long. But he's thrown the ball 39 times this season. Okay, over 4 games that he's had playing time, which is once against the Eagles he threw, 14 against Indy, 19 against Tennessee, and then 5 against Jacksonville. Jordan threw it 39 times against Detroit alone. So for people to say Malik's a better quarterback because he hasn't thrown an interception or he's just been winning the games, it's such a apples to oranges comparison. I think if Matt ran a game plan like he does for Malik for Jordan, I think you'd see a lot of success. And I don't mean limit Jordan as much as you do Malik, but be so run heavy to focus that it opens up play action and opens up everything else. We saw the start of the game. Where they were feeding Josh Jacobs like no other, and he was having so much success. And then it's almost like, all right, he's got 90 yards in the first quarter, I don't remember. I didn't check his stat line, but he's got 90 yards in the first quarter or first half, and it's like, okay, well, now we're not going to run with him anymore. And I know he's banged up. He has his ankle injury. But you should be so run focused. This team's built around a good run. You have Josh Jacobs, who's phenomenal. Emmanuel Wilson, who's looked very flashy. Chris, why am I spacing on it? I just have it right here. Chris Brooks. Thank you. Chris Brooks, who's looked pretty good in the limited snaps he's had. He's good in pass protection. We should be so focused on running the ball, build off of play action and then go from there. And I know we keep seeing penalties happen, which makes that really hard to do. But man, Josh Jacobs was just torching them, and then we just stop. Middle of a downpour, middle of a monsoon, we just decide to start throwing it. Super frustrating. I'm sure that that's something that they're gonna look at over the bye week. But you look back to last season and the success that Love had in the second half. How much of that went through Aaron Jones? You think about the second part of the season when Aaron Jones came back healthy, the offense ran through Aaron Jones, which allowed Jordan to take advantage of opportunities that the defense was giving him. And I think they need to go back to that. Let Jordan, I know he's been in the NFL. This is his, fourth season, drafted in 2020. So whatever. But I know he's been in the NFL for a minute, but he's still a young starter. He's only started with one season under his belt. You need to allow this guy to still come up to things. He's not a wily old veteran by any means, just because he's been in the NFL a minute. Being in the NFL and playing time are drastically different things. I could learn about driving and I could practice driving in a parking lot, but it does not replicate driving. And I think that's kind of the same thing with playing an NFL quarterback. It takes time. It takes real reps. And I think the easier you can make it on him, the better. I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, because I think a lot of people who watch this probably agree with me that, that saying that Malik should be starting over Jordan is a very big over exaggeration, or a very big reach. So I'm probably just going blue in the face, venting to people who get it. But it is what it is, I guess, at this point. I feel like Malik is almost getting that Jeff Janis level of hype that we saw in 2015, where everyone wanted Devontae bench for Jeff Janis, and it feels like that with Malik Willis. That's how I felt all day, Monday or Sunday night after the game, when people are commenting Malik's better, Malik should be the starter, Malik's this, Malik's that, and it's I love Malik, great quarterback, great backup quarterback for us, great asset for us, but Jordan Love's definitely a much better quarterback. Even with mistakes, Jordan Love's a much better quarterback. And I'm aware everyone fans differently, and I understand there's criticism to be made. I'm not naive to that by any means, but the sky is falling mentality after every loss just drives me nuts. This team's not going to win every game. I can assure you that. I watched in 2011 as the team almost did win every game, and that was not a good outcome either. So take your lumps. This is such a small blip on the season. When you look back to previous seasons, the Packers have lost some bad games, games that they shouldn't have lost. They've lost to division opponents, and they've still made the playoffs. And I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but it's such a small blip in a long season. 1 out of 17, such a long season. Just trust the process. Just enjoy the ride. Just breathe. It's okay. And like I said last week. Oh, Raimundo. Okay. Making me nervous. You're making me nervous. Yeah, Jenny nailed it. He did such a great job running. I wish they would have just kept on it. Yeah, great point, Joe. That he definitely tweaked his ankle. There's something with his ankle. And plus, Detroit made us one-dimensional in that game. After Love's pick six, and then when they just scored the following drive and you're down big, they make you pretty one-dimensional. Let's see here. Kind of, I can get off that rant now. I feel like I've been ranting for a while about Jordan Love, but it just really bothers me how fans just treat this guy who's, I don't know why, what's up with the hate on him. And I know fans are so used to Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and that's their benchmark. And it's not even Hall of Fame. They're used to Aaron Rodgers level precision quarterbacks, because it seems like most fans forgot about what it was like to watch Favre in most of his career. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's any other points I had on that before I move on, but I think I can probably let it rest there. Kind of talking about, another thing that kind of frustrated me with the game. Defense has obviously taken a big step forward, right? We limited them to 17 points, like Kirby had mentioned, which is huge. What's still very frustrating to me, though, is the lack of pass rush. I'm almost to the point where I'm like, do we need to like get milk cartons printed up with some missing posters on them, or what's going on? Because you spend a lot of money, and I'm not knocking Rashawn Gary at all. There's only so much that like some people can do on the line. He's going to be getting double, triple teamed, whatever. But someone needs to start making some pressures, because it's so frustrating to watch the quarterback just sit back there and not really feel anything coming their way. We saw the one sack that Rashawn had a half and Mosby had the other half on it. The right tackle tripped over the guard, which allowed Mosby to get that pressure on the end, pushing Goff up into the pocket. But there needs to be better. You need those guys that are getting paid, the Kenny Clarks, the Rashawn Garys. You need them to start being able to get the pressures. Obviously, we saw Preston's production was declining in the role, which I love Preston. Preston's a super nice guy. He did a lot for us over the years, but in this defense, it didn't seem like he was shining to what I would have liked him to do. So I'm happy they're able to offload that contract, and hopefully one of these guys you can get coming in, whether it's Cox or Mosby, or Engenbar. Hopefully one of these guys can come in and start generating some pass rush on the other side, because we desperately need it. Derek says, who do I want to see take Smith's snaps? That's a good question, Derek. I know we're not into the burning hot questions, but I saw that one sitting there, and I don't know. I don't know. I guess I would like to see some rotations and just see who makes the most of it. We saw Mosby get a pressure that resulted in a sack. It'd be nice to see maybe him get some more. Maybe he pulls away with it, but anyone who can get pressure, like rotate them through and let's see what we got. You watch like the Raiders with Max Crosby and the motor that guy has, and it seems like no matter who they put on him or how many people they put on him, he's finding a way to the quarterback. And you watch the Bengals, was it Hendrickson? He's kind of the same way. I see that dude just wreak havoc in the backfield constantly, no matter what they do. I also really like him because he doesn't wear gloves. He just tapes his fingers, which I think looks really awesome. But that's definitely an area of concern. And as we talked about like the trade deadline coming and going, I feel like there's just a couple pieces that we needed that making one trade wouldn't necessarily make a difference and makes it a little bit harder. Pass rush is one, and then DBs. The lack of corner play, or the like fall off of corner play that we see with Jair out, is really difficult. Now I know having a lack of pass rush doesn't help, because then it makes the defensive backs' jobs that much more difficult. But last year, Carrington Valentine played it pretty strong. He hasn't gotten a ton of playing reps this year, but between him, Nixon, and Stokes, they looked like receivers were running wide open on Sunday. It was something that I felt like was kind of a strength coming into this year. We had Stokes coming back from his injury and finally felt healthy for the first time. Carrington, who played pretty well. Nixon, who's done really well in like the nickel or slot role. And now it's kind of starting to feel like a liability. It feels like a pass rush and a corner are like the two things that we're going to need to address this offseason. I hope that maybe moving on from Preston and giving guys new opportunities. LVN is another one. I don't know why I spaced on him getting more pass rush opportunities. You hope that these guys can take this next step and be able to make the defensive backs' lives easier. But man, those are tough. We've missed Jair a couple of games now, two big ones, Minnesota and Detroit. Both are ones that you really want your top corner in, and he's missed both of them with some injuries. I'm hoping the bye gives him a chance to kind of rest up so we don't see this injury continue to linger throughout the season, because you're going to need him over this next stretch. It's tough. Let's see what Kirby here says. Kirby's always breaking out some good stuff. If I have to see Stokes 4 yards behind chasing the guy on a first down, I might drown myself in spotted cow. Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, Kirby. Stokes is known for his speed too, which is the alarming part. You'd think a guy like that is almost going to play like a Sam Shields, that even if he does get burnt a little bit, he's going to have that closing speed to like still make the play. But maybe after his injuries, maybe he's not as fast as he once did. And Derek's nailing it on the head again as well. Missing Evan Williams in that game is a huge loss for this defense. And we need him healthy sooner rather than later because he is so vital to this team. Tony, I like Nixon in like more of a slot role. I don't think he should be like cornerback one like we saw him kind of trying to do, but I do think he should be doing all punts and kick returns. I think he's super explosive on that, and I don't know. Anytime we get a Dell signing or a sighting is a good time. Dell, I over the years, Dell's followed my page for a long time. Him and I do not always see eye to eye, but I respect Dell in the opinions he brings, and I appreciate what he brings because it opens my eyes to other things. So Dell, super good to see in the live show, man. Jair's my favorite player, but we cannot depend on him. It is tough because we see injuries continue to linger, but you also see this big drop off when he's not there. So it's like, would you rather have an employee who's a phenomenal employee showing up 80% of the time, or would you rather have a mediocre player or employee who's going to show up every day but kind of is a liability to the business? And that's where it's like the tough thing. Yeah, I mean, it is, I think Jair's contract's way too expensive for us to do anything, but it'll be curious to see what we do. As I'm continuing on my rants here, we don't have like a coming up game to talk about, so I figured I'd just talk a lot about last week's game. And obviously we're going to get into some burning hot questions and do giveaways and all that fun stuff, but gold package, man. I really wish the Packers could figure out something, and it's not just gold package, but gold package seems to be the culprit every single time. The amount of fans that I see that just like sell their tickets to the highest bidder, don't care if it's Packer fans or the opponent, just boggles my mind, right? You have a 190-year waiting list on average for season tickets. Might be more, might be less, depending on how many you get. That's if you're getting a two season tickets. And yet there's fans that all they do with their season tickets is sell them. That's the only reason they have them, is for financial gains, which I'm not against people making money or whatever, but it is sickening that like so many diehard fans are just waiting for an opportunity to get into Lambeau Field and have their own season tickets, but they can't get it because some people, it's like their side hustle for the year or what have you. I wish the Packers could just figure something out. Like, you can obviously track who's transferring tickets now. Everything's digital. And I understand you're not going to be able to go to every single game, and you're going to transfer them out to family and stuff like that. But there's got to be a way to monitor that and actually like punish those who are just solely selling all the tickets. And maybe that's just me being like an annoying Packers fan, but I think it's like pretty sickening that some people just have fans solely for the fact of making a profit on them. And if you're going to sell your tickets as a fan, I see some people sell their tickets, and I think the route they go is my preferred route, is only selling to Packer fans and selling for minimal markup or even no markup. I know a lot of people around here that have offered me tickets in the past if they can't go to the game. No markup on a ticket, and they'll only sell to Packer fans. And I think that's how it should be if you are going to sell it. But I don't know. I wish the Packers would figure something out. And I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, right? There were definitely there's a positive overall here. And we kind of already talked about it a little bit. I think Kirby brought it up. I could be mistaken on who brought it up, but even with all of the self-inflicting wounds that the Packers had, and we see them even when we're winning, but even with all of these self-inflicted wounds, we lost by 10 points. Okay. So many penalties, so many things that you can clean up. And it feels like the Lions are obviously the number one team in the NFC, but it feels like that could have been a game that the Packers had have taken care of had they just not shot themselves in the foot so many times throughout the game. So if they can get it turned around like they did last year, this team could really be dangerous. And that's a very promising thing to know. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to rant about, and I'm sorry to just like unload that, but as I'm, sitting, kind of thinking about stuff at work, and I write down some notes, and so that's kind of just the stuff I've been thinking about. Derek, yeah, dominated total yards. I mean, we dominated a lot of things across the board. And it's just, yeah, it's tough. Ooh, Mr. Foreman, good to see you here, man. James, my good friend. It's my wife's best friend's dad, who's now became my good friend. So it's good to see you, James. Appreciate you swinging in. Let's do some burning hot questions. I'm gonna drop the sign in for the form again. If you've already entered, don't worry about doing it again. But if you haven't entered, we're gonna be doing 2 giveaways tonight. So make sure you enter in for your chance to win something if you have not already done so. But let's get into some. Let me get this transition going here. I ranted quite a bit tonight, and I'm sorry for that. But if you guys have any questions, let's feel free to drop them below. Let's start answering a little bit of them. I definitely ranted for too long. Appreciate you guys sticking through with these rants, but huge thank you to Legend Larry's, of course, for sponsoring the show all season long. And all season long, anytime you're going into a Legend Larry's doing either a Packers or Brewers game, you can get a dozen wings for only $10, which is a steal. And I don't think there's a limit on how many dozens you can get. So go get like 3 dozen DOAs. Eat wings till you explode. James, maybe we should go get Legend Larry's some Badgers game, huh? You and I can go wing for wing in DOA. But yeah, thank you to Legend Larry's. I appreciate them immensely. I've been supporting them for years, so I was really excited when they wanted to sponsor the show. Start it with Ben. What's the number thing we Packer fans are we the Packers are lacking this season? I mean, I feel like right now, as far as the team, I mean, you got discipline, of course. We talked about that. I think from an actual production on the field, I think what we're lacking is pass rush. And I think just consistency. We talked about the discipline. You look back over the games we played, and there's one game where I felt like we played the most disciplined game the entire season, and that was the Cardinals game. And that was a game that was not even really close. It felt close at halftime. You saw Bo Melton slip, which Jordan threw an interception on that slip. But outside of that game was was super disciplined. There's very few penalties, very few mistakes, and the Packers just steamrolled them. And then you got other games where it's just like penalty after penalty and timely penalties and costly penalties, costly turnovers, costly mistakes that just keep taking away opportunities for the team. Great question, though. Let's see here. Corey, I don't know if this is your or Logan question, or maybe it's both. If you are in Matt LaFleur's shoes, what's the biggest point of emphasis between now and the games against Chicago for the team to address? Thank you for the question, Corey. I think the biggest thing is just I don't know if it's like, it's not obviously as easy as just say clean it up, right? Just clean it up. I don't know if guys are just overthinking it. I don't know if guys are just like still kind of getting comfortable in this system. Still a very young football team. But man, there just needs to be more like focus on the ball. There needs to be more focus on the plays that are going into it. You need to have that that habit and that rep down where you don't need to think about it. You can just let it go. You can just play the game, shut off your brain and do your thing. I think that's kind of what you need to do. You need to clean up these mistakes first and foremost. And if that means dumbing stuff down for a little bit and slowly easing back up, maybe that's the route you go. I don't know. I'm not a coach by any means, but that's the biggest thing. I think if you can kind of play clean football and avoid costly mistakes in dire situations like we've been seeing the Packers make, it's going to make a world of difference. Tony, this is an interesting question. You say what players should stand up and start holding other players accountable. I do think that's a tough part when you start having a team that's really young. A lot of those leader players don't really exist anymore. Preston was probably one of the leaders on defense. I don't know what his leadership role was in the defense, but now he's not on the team. and you have young guys, and it's hard to find a leader. Maybe a Kenny Clark, some of these guys that have been here a little bit longer, maybe a Kenny Clark, maybe it's just kind of by group, but like you have wide receivers who are all young. There's not really a leader when everyone's young. You have Jordan, who's been here since 2020, maybe one of the older guys on the team. Um, so Josh Jacobs, maybe, but he's only been here a little bit. So I think that is a part where it's like, there's not really, you look back in the past, you have like the Charles Woodson, who's the leader. He's the veteran of that defense. He's going to speak to that defense and they're going to listen. These are young guys. There's not that role. And does that play a huge void? Is that part of it? I don't know. I love seeing young guys and, on this defense and what they can do, but there's probably some flaws with that. And maybe that's one of them. Tully, which players have surprised you the most and which have been the biggest disappointment so far for this season? Who has surprised me the most? Maybe I shouldn't say surprised, but Tucker Kraft has really emerged out of like, he's just blown away all expectations for me so far this season. He's really taken advantage of Musgrave's time out. As far as and Edgerrin Cooper, I've talked about this. I feel like every week, Edgerrin Cooper should not leave the field on defense. That dude, I don't care whose job he takes, he should be on defense every single play. And as far as who's disappointed me this season, maybe I'm gonna say, I don't know. I hate saying like I'm disappointed in a player, because I feel like there's always a lot more to a story. But I think like, when you have like I don't know, I would say maybe like Rashawn Gary, and just like, I wish we would just get a little bit more consistent pass rush or pressure from him. Maybe Jair's another one too, that he's missed 2 divisional games, which are your big ones. And I know it's not his fault. Odds are he probably wants to play, but he can't always go. The training staff probably doesn't always let him. Let's see here. Got to take a drink before. Yeah, that's dude. This is gonna be a good one, Dell. I haven't even read it all. Would you play Jordan Love at 75 to 80% after the bye week against the Bears, or a healthy Malik who has won games to take care of the ball against good Bears defense? My hope is that Jordan Love after the bye is not 75 to 80%. Last week we talked about it, Dell, and I said that I would be fully, if Love was not fully ready to go, that I would be fully on board with Malik playing against the division rival Lions and giving him that extra week. But it's they played him and it didn't look like he's 100% healthy. I don't know that he tweaked anything or if anything happened beyond that. That's a good question. I don't really know the answer, to be honest with you. I guess it just depends on the game plan. If Love is 80%, I feel like at this point you got to play him. The only reason I think I was leaning more towards that before the bye week was because the fact that we had the bye week. I think you play him and you tailor your game plan to not put too much on his shoulders. I think you put it heavy on Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks as well. But I don't think you put it all through him and where he's throwing 40 passes a game, and really keep him run focused. But that's a good question, Dell. Let's do like one. I'm going to do one more question, then let's get to some NFC. Well, we got to do our giveaway and stuff like that, but I'm not going to try to go too far over my time here. In case I see your question, we're going to talk about the remaining schedule here. I am glad you see at least 6 more W's. We'll see what happens. Let's see here. Swag Coda, my boy. If you could play in a historical Packer game, which if I could play, in what position would... Bro, no one wants to see me play. Am I actually like athletic in this scenario, or am I playing as myself? Because if I'm playing as myself, dude, I think I would have to go back to like the 30s, right? I feel like that's the only way I could potentially compete. If I could go back and teleport as myself now with the football knowledge I have now and the years of me playing football, even in like backyards, not on a team or anything like that. I feel like that'd be the only era I could compete. I don't know a specific game that comes to mind off of like the 30s, but that'd be the only era I could compete. My guy Casey here, that's in there in this chat, in watching the live, his great grandpa played for the Packers. Now he almost qualified for the Olympics as well. So maybe I wouldn't even have a chance, even back in the 30s. But I feel like that's the only thing. Yeah, Ben says defensive back. Yeah, dude, I'm getting torched. It would be so bad. Corey, we're still gonna do a show next Tuesday. I don't know what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna hang out. I'm sure I'll have plenty of rants to go next Tuesday. We'll talk about the upcoming game and stuff like that. It might not be as long, but let's do last chance. If you haven't entered the giveaway, we're going to be knocking that out here soon. So I'm dropping that one more time. If you've already entered, do not enter a second time. Just enter one time. If you enter a second time, I got to go back through and clean it up. Frank, you don't know anything, dude. I would torch you. I've torched you in Madden. I've torched Soy Coda in Madden as well. I got great quarterback vision. I got a rocket for an arm. You guys won't even have a chance. No, I'm not playing quarterback. Maybe in the 1930s I could play quarterback. All right, let's do this giveaway here. First, before we jump over that, huge thank you as well to Nicolay Law. All season long, just like Legendaries is doing their $10 dozens, we're doing giveaways here during the podcast. Thank you to Nicolay Law. And all season long, if the Packers do lose, we are getting a bonus giveaway, because even when bad things happen to us, like the Packers losing, Nicolay Law wants to try to make it better. Not that the Packers losing is that bad on the grand scheme of things, like getting into an accident that causes injuries. But if you are injured, get Nicolay, of course. Appreciate them working with us all season long. So let's take a look at these. Make sure I don't dox anyone. That's always my first priority. I'm not trying to like give out anyone's information. I appreciate people's privacy. I know I don't like my privacy going out to people, or my information going out to people. So as always, if you are not here, then you will forfeit your prize. I'll be sharing my screen in a second. Just making sure that from an individual level, just got to make sure that I don't see any duplicates. Okay, perfect. Giveaway wheel. All right, let's share this screen here. I wish there was a way for me to do this a little bit quicker, but I feel like it's always whenever you're doing like a live giveaway, it's always a little bit tough just to make sure everything's right. So we have 22 entries, excuse me. Good luck, everyone. We are going to do two winners. So if you get drawn for a giveaway, make sure you say that you are here, or let me know. And then give me a number 1 through 40, and then up or down, if you will, please. But here we go. Good luck, everyone. First winner, we got Jenny. Congratulations, Chad. I thought you were getting another one, man. Jenny, please give me a 1 through 40 if you are here, and then an up or down. And then, I'm trying to click on the wrong thing here. And then we're going to do one more. Who do we got? Was that swinging around to Corey? Corey, I know you and Logan are still watching, so please give me a 1 through 40, up or down, please, and we'll draw some prizes. First one that tells me their number, and if they're doing up or down, I will pick their prize. So please do so in a timely manner. Let's look at, we had the scenario last week of Josh Jacobs 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. I might have to tweak these to make the scenario, I don't know, a little bit more easily attainable. We'll see. But let's see what this week's shit, we don't have a scenario. Never mind. We don't have a game coming up, so disregard me. The one time I actually remember to do a scenario, we don't even have a need for it. So disregard me. I do see Jenny commented. She's here. We got 27 and down. Oh, it's your birthday today. Well, happy birthday. I appreciate you swinging in on your birthday and hanging out. So 27 and dropping them. Looks like we got 27 down and 24 and down. So very close to one another. All right. So Jenny, you get 25 because 27 and 26 were both already drawn. You got 25 there. You can't see it, but I know you trust me. And happy birthday to you, Jenny. Congratulations on winning on your birthday. You won a Lynn Dickey signed 8x10. Tony, 10 plus penalty should be one. No, thank you. And then let's see what Corey and Logan won. Ooh, this is a good one. John Kuhn, 8x10. You probably can't see that. Congratulations to you both. I'll shoot you an email so I can get your information. That way I can get those mailed out. I'm going to be mailing those out this week. I got to get Heather's out to her as well. And then Steve's from last week as well. So I usually go back. I go to the post office like once every couple weeks. So I will get all of those out this week for you guys. Appreciate your patience, Heather and Steve from last week. And congratulations to Tony and Jenny. Both of you have been watching quite a while this last season. I think Jenny, I think you've missed maybe one or two. And then I think Tony's been here 7 of the episodes. I think he's on like a 7-week streak. So I appreciate you guys watching each and every week. And also thanks to Nicolay Law. You know, I think these giveaways are a lot of fun, and they're a fun way to thank people who are here watching every week. So I appreciate you guys. No, it's not snowing in Green Bay yet. It's been very rainy. You saw it on the game. I had to stand out in the rain today to vote for like an hour. So it's been very cold and rainy, but the snow is not far off, man. I got my snowblower ready to go. So as we're kind of winding down, right? We don't have a matchup to talk about, which is why I ranted for so long about the game. As we're winding down, just want to talk about like where the NFC North is right now. Bears are coming off their loss to the Arizona Cardinals, and they're playing the Patriots on Sunday at noon in Chicago. The Vikings are coming off a win against the Colts, and they're playing Jacksonville Sunday at noon in Jacksonville. Detroit obviously coming off their win against the Packers, and they're playing Houston Sunday night in Houston. Packers' remaining schedule is quite interesting. We have the Bears, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Seahawks, the Saints, the Vikings, and the Bears. Did I miss someone there? I don't think I did. I think I got everyone. This is a good stretch for the Packers. And what I mean by that is this is the stretch to see if they're actually contenders or if they're pretenders. The Bears have a great defense, like we talked about. That could be a very difficult game if their defense shows up. Their offensive line is atrocious. So if our pass rush can't get anything on the Bears' offensive line, then that's a very big level of concern. 49ers are going to be coming in hot. They're going to get CMC back. They're a strong team, and obviously our kryptonite. That's a really tough one. Dolphins are with Tua again. I don't know how much that helps them. I haven't paid a lick of attention to the Dolphins. Lions, we know they're tough. Seattle has been up and down. They've been all over the place there. The Saints are sellers. I think they're pretty much cashing in on the season. They're calling it a day. But any given Sunday in the NFL, I'm never going to call anything an easy win in the NFL. And then you have the Vikings again and the Bears. That is a very tough stretch for a team that wants to be a playoff team. And I like that it's a tough stretch. I do not want an easy stretch. I don't want to limp into the playoffs and get just rocked in the playoffs. If we're going to make the playoffs, I want to get hot. I want to beat teams that we need to beat to be in the playoffs and show that we deserve to be in the playoffs and take that momentum and keep going forward. And that starts with the fact that we need to really become more disciplined. Tony's going to be going to the Thanksgiving game, sitting in the suites. Oh, that'll be nice. Hopefully the weather's somewhat decent, but it's not going to matter to you because you are going to be in the suites. But Yeah, I mean that's a tough stretch, and I'm excited for it. You know, if the Packers end up losing out and or not losing out, but losing a good chunk of those games and missing the playoffs, then that's what should happen, right? We have, um, I just want this team to be able to compete against these high powered teams, the Lions, the 49ers, because I want to know that if we see them in the playoffs, that we can give them a good run for their money and potentially beat them. So it's going to be a tough stretch. I cannot believe that we're already this point in the season, how far down it's been, because it's just crazy how fast football season flies, isn't it? Let's wrap up with the story of the week so I can go upstairs and hang out with my wife and get ready for bed. So, you know, when you get a ticket to a Packers game, if you're sitting in the bowl anyways, if you're sitting in the bowl and you get a ticket to the Packers game, you are getting 18 inches of super comfortable aluminum bleacher space. And you might be wondering, like, why are the Packers the only team in the NFL that still has bleacher seating? Over the years, they've obviously made numerous additions, they've made upgrades, and they've made a lot of changes to the stadium. So why don't they remove the bleachers in the bowl in favor of something maybe a little bit more comfortable for the fans? Well, the reason is very simple. Maybe you don't know this. With the waiting list currently over 150,000 people long, like we talked about, and if you were to go on the waiting list right now for 2 tickets, it's going to take you almost 200 years to get your tickets. Like we talked about. So if the Packers were to remove their bleacher seats in favor of more comfortable seating, like a bucket seating or like I don't know what they're called, the actual stadium seats, the Packers would lose 10 to 12,000 in stadium capacity, which is a huge drop. They're currently at 81,000 and change in seats, and it'll drop them down to 70,000 or so seats. Not only would you obviously have the financial implications of downsizing your stadium that much, but when you're talking about a stadium that's that in demand to be in there, you'd be revoking 10 to 12,000 season ticket holders seats and adding those to the list, and it would make the list even slower going. And depending on the season ticket holder, maybe that wouldn't be a bad thing to revoke their tickets. But and besides, I always say that you're not going to a Packers game to sit down and be comfortable. You're there to stand up and be loud and cheer. But I'm curious how many of you knew that was a reason why they have bleacher seats. George, I see in here. I'm sure you know that because if I'm not mistaken, you work for the Packers or you have worked for the Packers in the past. Congratulations on getting your season tickets after 32 years. That's incredible. But yeah, I mean, right now the Packers have the second largest stadium capacity in the NFL behind the Dallas Cowboys, and losing 10 to 12,000 seats would really put them behind in dropping seats. So, of course, Chad knew that. Taking a tour or two, you probably heard that. It's pretty common knowledge for sure. But I do think it's interesting because it gets brought up a lot that the Packers are the only stadium that has bleacher seats, and a lot of fans wonder why that is. So, yeah. I hope you guys, hey, Jenny, that's great. I hope you have fun at the Thanksgiving game. Always good to spend some time with 70 or 80,000 of your closest members of your family. So that'll be a good time. I don't think I'm going to go. I'm going to be just hanging out. All right. Before I sign off, Derek, you've opened up this like other thing that just irritates me about a lot of season ticket holders, or not a lot, but depending on where you sit. You get yelled at for standing, and you, like you said, you drive 8 hours to watch the game and you get yelled at for standing. It drives me bonkers. I went to a game against the Miami Dolphins in 2018. A friend was in from military leave from Italy. He was stationed overseas in Italy, came in, we saw the Packers, and we went to a game together, and it was 4th down. Dolphins were trying to get back into the game. The game wasn't over. It's 4th down. They're going for it. We're standing up and yelling, and the guy behind us is like tugging on our jerseys, telling us to sit down and give it a rest. My friend came unglued on him, went off about his military appreciation month and how he sat from a plane ride to Italy to Minneapolis, and he went unglued on him, and the people ended up leaving. But there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than like just being yelled at to sit down the entire time you're at a football game. Anyways, that's probably a short rant. I could go on for another hour about that. So, very awesome, Tony, that you've had season tickets since Lambeau open. That's awesome. Only slightly jealous. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. I appreciate you guys swinging in, hanging out with me for the little over an hour. It's always good hanging out with you guys. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy the bye week. Enjoy a stress-free weekend of football, and we'll catch you. We'll catch you next week, same time, same place. Thank you so much once again, and as always, go Pack Go. We'll talk to you next week.